Vadim Zeland, From Poverty to Wealth and Vice Versa. If you think sensibly, how can a simple person born in the slums get rich? We will not consider the criminal path, beautiful stories about millionaires, too. So reasoning based on common sense will lead to nothing. Then what is the use of the usual logic for you? Why fit into the framework of common sense? Just allow yourself to do what seems impossible. Acting logically, people get the appropriate result. If a person was born in poverty, he is surrounded by poverty, is used to it and is tuned to radiate energy on the purity of the line of his poverty-stricken life. It is very difficult to adjust to the line of one's prosperity if one has only hatred of one's poverty, envy of the rich and a desire to become well off himself. Or not. I would say that having only these three things available, it is almost impossible to move to the wealth line. Let's figure out why. Probably one of the first discoveries of all children entering life is the fact that if you don't want something, it doesn't mean that you will be spared from it. Sometimes a cry of despair just bursts out of my soul, but I don't want it so much, I just hate it, but why won't it leave me alone? Why does this always happen to me? Not only children, but also adults ask themselves a similar question in a fit of indignation. In fact, it's hard to come to terms with the situation that if you don't want something, it still happens, and if you hate it, it just haunts you relentlessly. You can hate your poverty, your job, your physical disabilities, neighbors, tramps on the street, alcoholics, drug addicts, dogs, thieves, bandits, arrogant youth, governments. The more you hate it, the more it occurs in life, it hurts you, you think about it, which means you continue to be in the poverty line, where the object of your discontent is present in excess. And it doesn't matter what the polarity of this radiation is, whether you like it or not. The second is even more effective, because negative emotions are stronger. Can you imagine how many harmful factors are inherent in a negative attitude to life? Let's go back to a man born in poverty. He has a dream of becoming rich. Well, one wish, as you know, does not change anything. You can sprawl on the couch and lazily pull. It would be nice to sunbathe on the beach now, but it's winter, and I don't have money for a trip. This is about how a poor man dreams of becoming rich. If a person is not ready to act to get what he wants, he will not get it. They act only because of the belief that nothing will work out anyway. That's such a vicious circle. Desire has no power, it cannot even lift a finger. This is done by the intention, that is, the determination to act. Intention also includes a willingness to have. A person can tell, well, you can't take it away from me, it's so easy, because I want to be rich. No, again there is a deep gap between wanting and being ready to become. For example, a poor person feels out of place in a rich environment or in an expensive store, even if he tries his best to convince himself and others otherwise. Deep down, he believes that he is not worthy of all this. Wealth is not included in the comfort zone of the poor, and not because it is uncomfortable to be rich, but because he is far from all this. The new chair is more comfortable, but the old one is more comfortable. The poor know only the outer side of wealth, luxury homes, expensive cars, jewelry, travel. If a poor person is placed in such an environment, he will feel uncomfortable. Give him the suitcase with the money, so he will start doing all sorts of stupid things, and in the end he will lose everything. The purity of the energy that he translates is in sharp dissonance with such a life, and until a beggar lets the attributes of wealth into his comfort zone, until he learns to feel like the owner of expensive things, he will remain poor, even if he finds a treasure. Another obstacle to wealth is envy. As you know, to be envious means to be annoyed at someone else's luck. In this sense, there is nothing constructive about this feeling. But there is one strong destructive element in envy. The psychology of a person is arranged in such a way that if he is jealous of what he would like to have himself, he tries in every possible way to devalue it. That's the logic of black envy. I envy what he has, I don't have it and it's unlikely to appear, but what am I worse than him? So the thing he possesses is bad and I don't need it. So the desire to have turns into psychological protection, and then develops into rejection. Rejection is on a subtle level, because the subconscious understands everything literally. Consciousness devalues the object of envy just for show, for complacency, and the subconscious takes everything seriously, and here it does a disservice, doing everything not to get devalued and rejected. Thus you see what tenacious forces keep a person on a poor line of life. Events develop even more dramatically during the transition from a wealthy to a poor lifeline. It happens that a completely prosperous person loses everything and ends up on the street. All the insidiousness of such a transition to poverty is manifested in the fact that its spiral unwinds slowly, imperceptibly at first, and then more rapidly, so that it can no longer be stopped. This spiral begins with temporary financial difficulties. Note that temporary financial difficulties can always be for everyone. This is as common an inevitability as, say, rain on the day when you are going on a picnic. If you do not fall into rage, depression, anxiety, or resentment about life on this occasion, then without receiving negative nourishment, the situation will stabilize. The real transition to a poor lifeline begins if you strongly grasp the tip of the spiral and begin to unwind it. Your first reaction is discontent. For the current difficult situation, this is still too weak support, and if your emotions run out on this, then it will be resolved. Another reaction is indignation, and this is already stronger. You begin to send information to the world around you that someone is to blame for your financial difficulties. You respond to this second push with negative reviews or actions against the perpetrators. At this moment, the negative energy begins to fill you completely and a new spiral begins. You get another salary even less, or prices have jumped, or you are required to pay off the debt. Please note that at this stage you are not yet aware that there is some kind of process going on, it just may seem that annoying troubles have occurred. In fact, this is a directed process that you started yourself, responding to the negative with a negative. The purity of your energy radiation is increasingly being rebuilt from the line where you are successful to the line where you are deprived and indignant. Therefore, you are transferred to the lines of life corresponding to these new parameters. And now your situation is getting worse, bad news starts coming from everywhere, prices are rising, things are not going well in your company. You begin to actively discuss these negative news with friends and family. The discussion is usually conducted in a destructive way, that is, complaints, discontent and aggression against the alleged perpetrators. This is especially evident in companies where things are really bad. There, the day begins with the postulate that there is no money, as with morning prayer. In no case do not worry about the lack or loss of money, otherwise there will be fewer and fewer of them. If a person earns little, then his typical mistake will be whining about the fact that there is always not enough money. The parameters of such radiation correspond to poor lifelines. It is especially dangerous to succumb to the anxiety that money is becoming less and less. Fear is the most energetically saturated emotion, therefore, experiencing the fear of losing or not earning money, you move yourself in the most effective way on the line, where money is really getting less and less. At this stage, you are already completely captured by the spiral, your radiation is tuned to a destructive frequency. As things get worse, you get restless. The energy of anxiety, despite its small size, is very well manifested in your actions. In this state, you will inevitably create an aura of negativity around yourself, increasingly experiencing discontent, aggression, depression, apathy and resentment, and so on. Thus, the situation gets out of control and begins to develop avalanche-like. Fear completely takes hold of you and you are released into all cups. It was as if you were taken by the hands and spun, and then abruptly abandoned. You flew off to the side, fell and remained lying in a state of shock. A terrible picture. And it all started with small financial difficulties. As a result, when the spiral unfolded, the unfortunate at best lost a lot, and at worst, everything. Further events may develop in different ways. The unfortunate person will either remain lying on an unsuccessful lifeline, or will begin to struggle out. Such a transition can occur both with an individual and with a large group of people. In the second case, as you understand, this is not just a spiral, but a real whirlpool, from which it is very difficult to get out. The only remedy for such a transition is not to grab the tip of the spiral, not to succumb to emotions and not to get involved in a destructive game. It is not enough just to know how this mechanism works, you should always remember about it. You pull yourself together whenever, out of habit, as in a dream, you accept this game, that is, you express dissatisfaction, indignation, show concern, participate in destructive discussions, and so on. In a dream, it happens exactly the same way. Until you realize that this is a dream, you are a puppet in someone else's game and you may be haunted by nightmares. As soon as you woke up, shook off the vision, realized what the game was going on, that's it. You are the master of the situation and will not become a victim of circumstances, while everyone around you is in a zombie state. Let's summarize the results. Each person chooses for himself which line of life he should be on the line of poverty or on the line of wealth. By radiating negative energy, a person himself worsens the line of his life. Aggression is mistaken for strength, and discontent for a normal reaction. The more often a person responds to negative events, the worse it is for him. This leads him to the poverty line. Try not to let any negative information on the line of your life. Not to let means not to avoid, but to deliberately ignore, not to be interested. Negative information, discontent and envy have not solved any problems yet, on the contrary, they add them. So you need to focus on the benefits and the opportunities. The world as a mirror reflects your attitude towards it. When you are dissatisfied with the world, it turns away from you. When you fight with the world, it fights with you. When you stop your battle, the world comes to meet you. Vadim Zeland.